Hey guys, welcome back to the Creating Happiness podcast. If you're a returning listener, thank you so much for tuning back in. And if you're new here, my name is Anya, and this is a place that you can come to learn about how to be your happiest, healthiest self and how to create more happiness for yourself in your own life. I'm going to start today's episode a little bit differently with an unscripted, sort of verbal diary entry, but relating to how the podcast is coming along, how my process is changing, my thoughts around it, because this is all still so new. It feels new still. I very much still feel like a beginner, and I feel like I'm learning some helpful things about how to make this the podcast that I wanted to put out onto the internet. But if you're not interested in the yap, I'll probably put timestamps in the episode description for today, which is something that I wanted to start doing for all of my episodes going forward. But yeah, don't worry, you'll be able to skip this if you couldn't give a shit. But I just wanted to talk about the fact that episodes have not been coming out as frequently as I'd like them to, which is 100% my own doing because there's only one person behind this. I'm fully in control of how often content gets put out. But it has been about a month in between each episode, I think, for the last 3 or 4. And I think I might be getting to a stage where I feel like I can't say this because I think I've said it multiple times now and then it's still not happened. But I do genuinely think that we might be getting closer, fingers crossed, to getting them out every other week or so. I had a little bit of a breakthrough in how I was thinking around the podcast this week. I think this episode script I have rewritten 3 times to be about 3 essentially completely different topics. And I think what is happening is I will have an amazing day where I feel like I'm in such a flow state and I'm so excited about what I'm writing, and I will get a script out and I'll be so happy with it and I'll go to bed and be like, great, I'm going to film tomorrow. And then I wake up the next morning and I read it and the perfectionist part of me comes out and goes, no, do you know what? I want to make this better. I need to make this better. And I end up redoing the whole thing. And it just, I keep putting things actually out there. And I had to have a little bit of a word with myself yesterday and say, you are losing sight of what is important to you and why you wanted to do this. I know I've spoken before about how I think perfectionism can be a coping mechanism and how it is a way of excusing keeping yourself hidden so that you don't have to be seen, so that you don't have to be critiqued and judged. And I didn't think that was what was going on. But then the more I thought about it, the more I thought actually maybe there is something in that, and that is what is going on slightly here. Because I think one of my biggest fears around starting the content creation and everything was that I didn't want to just add more noise to the internet, and I wanted to make something that was of really good value. And I think especially because I have come across so many incredible content creators already who really are adding values for internet. But I think the problem was my idea of what was value maybe became slightly warped, or I think I had a pretty good sense maybe when I first started filming episodes of what adding value to the internet meant. And I think I was a little bit more grounded in the belief that, you know, my episodes don't have to be perfect. They don't have to encompass everything I could ever want to say on a particular topic. Each one is just a discussion. And even if I say one thing that's of value to one person, that is enough. And I do think I lost sight of that a bit. And so like today, I want to start talking about how I think building a healthy lifestyle can be one of the most incredible things that anybody could ever do for their mental health. But it's such a big topic that I care about so deeply and is so personal that I think the reason I kept rewriting a sodding episode was because I wanted to get out everything that I could have to say on it, and I wanted to articulate it perfectly, and I wanted to make sure that anybody who listened could come away from it having their perspective on life changed. And I think realistically that is not what's going to happen, and I don't think that's what my aim should be. And I want to get back to saying it is okay to put out a 25-minute episode or a half an hour episode that starts a discussion on a topic and maybe touches on 1 or 2 really interesting points, but that not everything I say has to be 100% original. I don't have to have done weeks and weeks of research to talk about any particular topic. It's okay to talk about what I've done so far. I think another part of the problem I was coming across is that I was trying to approach this podcast like I would expect that people approach writing a book. When people write a book on a subject, they, from what I know, spend months or years writing it. And you don't have months or years with every podcast episode that you put out if you're trying to get one out every week or every week. So today, I think, is about me trying to get back to what I wanted this to be, which was every week starting a discussion, giving something of value to at least one person, and not putting pressure on myself to have everything that I put out be perfect and life-changing. So yeah, I guess this is a little bit more for myself than anybody else, but it's my podcast, so screw you all. If you're listening to it, you chose to. This week for me is about letting go of perfectionism and just opening up a discussion on a topic that I really care about, and I'm not going to promise that it's going to be mind-blowing or life-changing, but hopefully it will remind you of things that you already knew but hadn't thought about the importance of in a while, or hopefully you might learn something new that is of use. So yeah, with all that said, let's get into my very imperfect podcast episode on why I think building a healthy lifestyle can be the most incredible thing you will ever do for your mental health and happiness. I want to start today by quickly recapping a concept that I've spoken about before, which is that how we feel and the state of our mental health at any one time is not simply a result of our minds and our thoughts and our brains. It is a combination of the actions that we take and our thoughts and feelings and our emotions all at the same time. And these three things all have an influence and effect on each other. How we feel will have an influence on the kind of thoughts that we have and the kind of actions that we're more likely to take. The way that we think will impact how we feel and, again, what actions we choose. And the actions that we decide to take will directly impact our hormone production and therefore our emotions and the way that we feel, and therefore the way that we think. So we are our thoughts and feelings and actions all at once. They all make up how we experience life and how mentally healthy we feel at any given time. But the three are not equally influenceable. There is no human being on this planet with the power to decide at any given moment to flip a switch in their brain and go from feeling miserable to happy. We do not have that kind of power to immediately decide to experience an opposite emotional state. And similarly, whilst I do believe that we have a lot of control over the kind of thoughts that we have, we cannot control initial thoughts that pop up in our brain. We can do a lot of work over time to increase the bias in our brain towards positivity instead of negativity, which decreases the likelihood of negative thoughts popping up as often, but it is not something that we can immediately impact in any given moment. Whereas I do believe that at any moment in time, we do have almost full autonomy and power over our bodies, and it is well within our capability to just decide that I'm going to get up and go for a 10-minute walk, or I'm going to get up and do a 5-minute workout, or write down one thing that I'm grateful for. Those decisions are pretty much entirely within your control. I'm definitely not saying that they're easy or that you'll always feel like making them, but you can make yourself do those things, whereas you cannot make yourself feel a different emotion or stop yourself from having certain thoughts. Now, different actions and choices that we make will have an impact on different hormone levels in our brains, which will change our emotional states, which will change the kind of thoughts that we have. So because of this whole concept, I really do believe that changing the behavioral decisions that you are making on a day-to-day basis is really the way to change your life. Again, although it is very difficult, you can make yourself do these things. You can choose to go on a walk and exercise and journal and cook yourself a good meal. You have full control over your physical body and you have free will. The second point that I want to make is that developing a healthy lifestyle and building these systems and implementing these habits into your life will do this incredible thing where it leaks and seeps over into other facets of your life, which is why I think that a healthy lifestyle can be so important and such an incredible place to start if you are serious about getting happy. This is something that Michael Smoke spoke That is really hard to say. This is something that Michael Smoke spoke about in a TikTok that he made, which I'll link in the episode description, because he summarized essentially my thoughts on the topic perfectly. For anybody who doesn't know who he is, I've referenced him before. His podcast is always linked in my episode descriptions because I think he adds a lot of value to the internet. He is predominantly a fitness and wellness lifestyle content creator, but he talks a lot about mindset as well, and things like why a healthy lifestyle will benefit you so much mentally, which is one of the biggest reasons that I love his content so much, is because it does feel so multi-leveled and faceted. The video was basically him saying that everything in your life improves when you start taking really basic care of yourself and making small improvements to things like your sleep and your diet and exercising. But it went beyond just that. He said that looking after your physical health and body with small lifestyle improvements builds your confidence and your resilience and your ability to get through difficult things and your own belief in yourself, essentially. Because you start to believe that if you can do difficult things and stick at things for a long time in one aspect of your life, being your physical health and healthy lifestyle, you can do hard things and stick through difficult things for a long time in other aspects of your life. And he made the point that obviously hitting protein goals and weightlifting isn't gonna fix your financial or marital or relationship problems, but the confidence that it builds and the resilience that you build by making those decisions and doing those things gives you the belief that you can and you will find a way to fix those problems and to get through and work through the issues that you're having. And he made the point that obviously hitting protein goals and weightlifting aren't in themselves going to fix your financial or marital or relationship problems, but what they will do is give you the self-confidence and the resilience and the self-belief to believe that you can work through them and you can work towards fixing them. This is why I care so much about healthy living and wellness, and why I think it will always be a key part of the content that I share, because I think for me, that is where so much of the growth and healing started. It's where I began to believe that it was possible for me to heal and grow. Because if change in my lifestyle was possible, and if I was able to make difficult decisions about whether or not to go to the gym, or snooze my alarm, or cook myself a healthy dinner, or read or scroll before bed, or journal or scroll in the morning, if I could keep making difficult decisions in those aspects of my life and see real positive, sustainable change, then maybe it was possible for me to see real and positive and sustainable change in other aspects of my life, and the way that I thought every day, and in the way that I saw and talked to myself. Because all of those decisions that I was making about choosing to do a workout when I didn't feel like it, and choosing to get up early in the morning and not snooze my alarm, and choosing to basically withhold myself from scrolling so many times throughout the day and choosing to engage in a healthy activity instead, those are all decisions that I used to think I just couldn't bring myself to do, and that it was out of my control, and like, oh yeah, it's great for the people who can just naturally get up and do all those difficult, boring things, but I just can't do it. I used to think like that, and proving myself wrong made me believe that I could change the other things in my life that I thought were just the way they were as well. That was when I started to believe that just maybe I could get past this belief that I can't change and things for me won't change. And I really do believe now that this can be where that all starts for so many other people as well. So the intention behind that little spiel was to hopefully get closer to persuading one person that healthy living and a wellness-centered lifestyle is not this surface level social media trend, and it can be so incredibly genuinely life-changing. I hate saying like this is so life-changing because I feel like that phrase is so overused, but with healthy living and habit building, I do genuinely believe it's true and it's warranted because I've experienced it firsthand. But before you go and get started on your brand new healthy lifestyle that hopefully you are now super inspired to go and begin, I want to reel off a couple of what I think are the most important words to keep in mind whilst getting started. Firstly, I think it is so important and healthy to actually expect to have days or lots of days where you fall off a wagon, or you quote unquote fail, or you forget or don't feel like, or just choose not to engage in your new chosen healthy habits. I think expecting setbacks is so important because you are not a robot. You are a human being with fluctuating emotions and motivation and willpower and busier days and less busy days. So with all of that in mind, it is completely unrealistic and irrational to expect every day to look the same and for you to be 100% consistent with any kind of new behavior. Let yourself quote unquote fail. Let yourself have bad days and remind yourself that they are an inevitable part of the process for quite literally everybody. And then hopefully you can get through them and get past them without them knocking your belief in your ability to get back up and try again tomorrow. Secondly, whatever I say today, please create your own version of a healthy and happy lifestyle. Take those small baby steps and make small changes that resonate with you personally and make you feel better. Please do not try and scare or shame or punish or push yourself into making any changes that make you more miserable or just don't feel right for you, because that defeats the whole purpose of this and the whole purpose of trying to build healthy habits. Please don't think that because something works for somebody else, or even a whole host of people on the internet or otherwise, it's going to automatically work for you, because no amount of studies and matching conclusions on the benefits of a particular activity are going to be able to confirm that those benefits will be felt equally or at all by every single other person on the planet at every single stage in their life. Those conclusions just won't be true for everybody all of the time. Just to give a really quick example on this, there's a woman called Katy, I think she's some sort of relationship coach, on TikTok. I'll try and find her account so that I can link it. But I remember seeing a TikTok that she did years ago, and she was talking about how something that she was trying to do was add more things into her life that made her happy, which sounds really obvious, right? But then she was going on and she was telling this story about how basically she'd spent years going on walks, going on hot girl walks, because that's what the internet had told her to do, and that's what was all the rage and what everybody said had been making them feel so much better. But what she realised after going on them every day for God knows how long is that they didn't make her happy, because when she went on mindfulness walks without headphones in, she either got stuck thinking about her past or she got stuck thinking about her future. And another piece of happiness advice that is all over the internet and self-help books is you have to stay in the present. So for her, walking just wasn't working. And that is so valid. And I think when you have a realization like that, it's really important to listen to it and not think, oh, but I must be doing it wrong, because if it works for everybody else and it has all these scientifically proven benefits, then it must work for me and I must carry on doing it. Because whatever the scientific benefits it's having on your hormones are, that's not going to outweigh the distress that staying stuck worrying about your past and future is going to cause you. So please remember that building a happy and healthy lifestyle is an experimental process, and try and listen to how your own personal, unique brain and body are responding to different changes that you're making. But the key part to this is that you won't know what does and doesn't work for you unless you are willing to keep trying and to keep trying different things and to stick at things long enough to actually be able to observe how they are consistently making you feel and how they make you feel on different days or at different times or when you do them in different ways. Again, it's an experimental process, but I think it does require commitment. Lastly, please remember that change isn't instant or linear. It will look different to everyone and happen on a different timescale for everyone, and that doesn't make you any better or worse than anybody else, and it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. Be patient, accept that anything in this life that is worth it does take a lot of time and effort and discomfort. Speak kindly to yourself to help your progress along, and just remember that if it was easy, then everybody would do it without any hitches and the world would be a perfect happy place. So I've shortlisted 4 of my favourite healthy habits and activities. These activities are all things that if I ever go through a really rough patch and want to reduce everything and go back to basics and set like a really low baseline for this is what I absolutely have to do to keep myself stable. Everything else is unnecessary, but these are like my foundational habits that are going to keep me happy. These 4 always make it in there. And they're also things that I certainly have always heard and been told by my parents and doctors and counsellors and social media and teachers even, that like, oh, you really should be doing those things. But I think quite often when I was being told, you need to do that, I wasn't being told in a way that I found interesting or engaging or exciting. I often wasn't told with any science to back it up. So today, as much as anything, I want to give you a little bit of the science to persuade you that these aren't just social media trends and there are actual research benefits behind these. I want you to be as interested in them as I am, or maybe not quite, because I think I am borderline obsessive about healthy habits, which isn't a bad thing. There are worse obsessions to have, but I want them to be interesting, and I want to get across that these things can be fun and enjoyable and can add so much to your life. On to number 1. This is probably not going to come as much of a surprise to anybody listening, I hope. But the first one is exercising. There is a really, really good reason that you can actually get prescribed exercise as a first-line treatment for depression by a GP here in the UK and in plenty of other countries. We spoke last week a bit about the physical and mental health benefits of exercising, but I'm going to run over the key points again today. So one of the reasons that exercising has such a positive impact on your mental health is that when you exert your body physically and put it under strain, you get a massive release of endorphins. Endorphins are one of our 4 happy hormones, so they give us a mood and energy boost, as well as reducing any stress or physical pain that we might be in. Physical exercise also leads to a slight increase in dopamine and serotonin, which are another 2 of our happy hormones. And whilst it increases the levels of those happy hormones, it reduces our cortisol and epinephrine levels, and they are both stress hormones. So it increases the level of our happy hormones and decreases the levels of our stress hormones. Exercise has also been linked to loads of things through various studies, like improved sleep quality and reduced anxiety, again because of the endorphin release and endorphins' de-stressing properties. Another benefit is improved cognitive function, partly because of the increased blood flow to the brain, but also because during exercise there's a release of proteins in our body that increases the size of our hippocampus, which is a part of our brain that is responsible for learning and memory, and which incidentally tends to be more shrunken in people with depression. And of course, a heightened ability to learn and focus is going to aid us towards achieving so many more of our goals that could contribute towards our happiness and fulfillment in life. This was top of the list, partly because it is something that I think so many of us are told throughout our lives, and we have this message drilled into us that exercise is important and looking after your body and being healthy and fit is super important, and we get told it as kids when we have to do PE lessons, and then as teenagers, and then my parents would say it to me, and then when I went to the doctors for depression they said, are you exercising? And there were times that I wanted to laugh and scoff because my pain felt so intense and my thoughts felt so huge and overwhelming that I thought, really, like, you're saying that a 20-minute jog 3 times a week is actually going to help me? And looking back now, I mean, this is partly, so one of my other scripts that I did for this episode, I said a lot more about the fact that we get, I think when we're suffering from mental health problems, so many of us get given this advice of, you need to exercise, or you just need to read 10 pages of this mindfulness book. And I think sometimes it can be a really damaging approach because in a way it, I think, unintentionally invalidates people, because although I don't think it's what people always mean when they say it, it kind of comes across a little bit like, oh, you just need to do this one thing and then it will fix your problems. And what I really want to say is that it's not that, and that's not true, and that's not the message we should be giving to people. But what exercise absolutely can do is impact your hormone levels, like we talked about with the endorphins, which will impact your emotional state And exercise genuinely can reduce the intensity of negative feelings that you are having. It can reduce your stress. And when your stress is reduced, you are then better equipped to engage in other healthy behaviors and to start making other positive life changes. But like I said at the start, it is an action step. And the actions that we physically choose to make are genuinely one of the only things that we have full control over. So I always think that the place to start is changing the actions that we are taking every day. But yeah, I do think that is one of the problems when you go to a GP appointment for depression and they only have 5 minutes to talk to you and they don't have the time to say, if you engage in exercise, this is the effect it will have on your hormones and this is the effect that will have on how you feel. But I do think, for me at least, that was crucial information to understand. I think if I don't know what effect something is going to have on me on a physiological level, I don't have the understanding that I need to of the benefits of it in order to go and commit to consistently engaging in that activity. I mean, maybe I did learn about it in PSHE as a child or teenager and I just wasn't paying attention, or I didn't remember it or something. But I think definitely doing my own research as an adult and learning more about it has renewed my perspective on exercise and on just how incredible and enjoyable and fun it actually can be. I do also think it's worth talking about the fact that we live in an extremely fat-phobic and thinness and beauty-obsessed society, and that I can only really speak from my own personal experience, but I don't think it's too out there to assume that a lot of other women and people, but I think especially women, feel like exercise is this thing that we're pressured to do to get thin and look attractive and societally acceptable. I do think this hyperfixation on the idea that exercise has to be to get the perfect summer bikini board or lose a pound or two on the scales can distract and detract from the fact that exercise is an incredible tool for improved mental well-being and improved mental health. And that's all it has to be about. You don't have to give a rat's ass about the way your body looks in a bikini or whether exercise leads to you losing weight. It doesn't have to be about that. So if the thought of that scares you or makes you feel like you want to crawl out of your skin, or like you just want to kind of go like that and give the hand to healthy living completely, I think I do understand, maybe not to the extent that everybody who's gone through it, but I've certainly experienced those thoughts before of wanting to reject the whole notion of exercise and healthy eating because it feels sort of tangled and ensnared in this really toxic dieting and beauty and validation obsessed culture. But I just wanted to talk about it briefly to put my 2 pence in and say that I know it's hard work in the world that we live in to untangle yourself from all of that, but it is possible, and you can see exercise as purely a tool for looking after your mental health. And if you can work towards seeing it like that, it can become this, again, beautiful and enjoyable thing. So regardless of what some other people might be working out for, it is okay and amazing and beautiful to build an exercise habit just for the mental health benefits alone. And that is what it is all about for me. Another reason that working out is at the top of my list is that I'm not sure if there's a better example I could give of a healthy habit that teaches you that you can do difficult things and consistently make hard decisions, because working out and exercising is categorically not easy. Just like any goal that you want to achieve, it takes consistency and effort and focus and willpower. It's also physically difficult. Even if you're not running long distance or lifting super heavy weights, like even if you're just doing low impact stuff, my morning Pilates at the moment, sometimes my girl Katy whose online studio I've been using, the moves she has me doing, I will be burning and literally internally begging for mercy and counting down the seconds until I can release my donkey kick or whatever it was. And I'm sure that my boyfriend, when he walks through a room and sees me on all fours on the floor doing these little leg movements when he's just come back from chucking however many kilos it is he throws around at the gym thinks, that's pathetic, what the hell is she doing? But it is hard, and pushing your body is so difficult, and it's as much a mental challenge as it is a physical one. But that's why it's so important, because the more times that you choose to show up and you push through the hurt, and the more workouts that you do, and the longer you last, and the more times you do what you said you were going to do, and you hold that move until the class instructor says, okay, release, or you keep going until the end of your interval, or you do the reps that you said you were going to do. The more you do all of those things, the more you teach yourself that you can tolerate discomfort, and you can do difficult things, and you can show up for yourself even when you don't feel like it and it's really hard. You can stay consistent and you can stay committed to a goal, and on the other side of all of that effort and discomfort lie huge rewards. Every time I get on the pull-up machine at the gym, the last 2 or 3 reps fucking suck. I hate the pull-up machine. I hate doing back and arms. I do them anyway because it's good to do things that I don't want to do, and also I don't want to look like a Hulk below the waist and have Little Miss spaghetti noodle arms on top. Anyway, you get the picture. I don't enjoy it. It hurts. It's not fun. Like, even knowing that it's benefiting me in some way doesn't particularly make me any more inclined to want to push through it. And I do have free will, and I know that I could just as easily decide not to do them, and I could go home a couple of minutes earlier having not suffered through that discomfort. But I push through them because I know that on the other side of literally those 2 or 3 last reps lies a fat endorphin rush and increased self-confidence and more confidence in my resilience and my ability to do hard things in pursuit of my goals. All of those things lie on the other side of those last few reps. The great thing about exercise is there are so many different forms you can do it in, and some of those forms are going to have additional benefits. Like, if you decide to start going to a weekly workout class with a friend, you're going to have the additional mental health benefits of having a regular, scheduled, quality social interaction, as well as having an accountability partner, which means it's potentially going to be an easier habit to build and stick to. Or if you choose to do a form of exercise that you do outside, like running or doing tennis classes, for example, you're going to get that added benefits of a serotonin boost from the sunlight exposure. Someone I used to go to uni with now teaches like a dance fitness class, which I always find really funny. I think it's really rogue how many people I know have gone through music college and just ended up in completely different careers. But anyway, it always, whenever I see her post videos of it on Instagram, it always looks so fun and positive and exciting and loud and like such a supportive and empowering environment. So if you wanted something that was going to boost your self-confidence and your self-image at the same time, you could find a class like that around where you live. Or if you know that the way that you're most likely to actually stick to an exercise habit is to do it at home in your living room, in your pajamas, which I've spoken about doing before, there are so many free workouts that you can find on TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube. There are literally limitless options, and you will be able to find something that works for you and supports you. Personally, I like to switch up the kind of workouts that I'm doing every few months or so, just because it keeps life fun, keeps life exciting. So I know when I started the podcast back in November, I was doing weightlifting and running on alternate days. At the moment, I'm actually getting up and immediately doing an at-home Pilates workout. So I bought a subscription to Katy online Pilates studio, which just gives me access to a website which has what looks like hundreds of Pilates workouts on there. Some of them are weighted, all of the ones I'm doing at the moment aren't. And I've been really surprised by how much I've enjoyed having like an instructor directed class that goes through a flow instead of like a list of moves to do and a set of reps. So that's a personal recommendation from me if you're looking for something different and fun. I couldn't recommend her stuff enough. Also, incidentally, it is the easiest I have found waking up at 5 a.m, which I always do for anybody who hasn't listened before and doesn't know. It is the easiest I have found it in a long, long time. Like, I am up like a shot. Those workouts are almost always in my top 3 moments of the day. But again, I cannot recommend enough experimenting with lots of different forms of exercise and finding which one brings you joy and feels like something you can do for enjoyment as opposed to a chore, because that makes all the difference. Healthy habit number 2 is walking. Again, sure, it won't come as a surprise. I genuinely might go as far as to say that walking is one of my favourite hobbies. I am a proud 10k steps a day girly. Again, not because skinny talk tells me that that's what I should do to stay lean and toned and in a good figure, but because I genuinely really can't go a day now without at least one walk, because the difference in my mood is so extreme and noticeable, and I just feel the benefits of it in so many other areas, like in my focus and clarity of thought, and again in the quality of my sleep. Oh, and of course my stress levels, massive one. And again, like exercise, the increase in blood flow to our brains increases our cognitive function. I think it's natural that it has a lot of the same benefits as working outdoors, because it is a form of exercise, and while it's probably not going to give you as intense an endorphin rush as a workout will, because you're not pushing your body as much on a 10-minute walk as you are in a weightlifting session or on a run. Whilst that's true, there are some benefits that are unique to walking. For me personally, the biggest benefits it gives me are probably the help with the emotional regulation, because no matter what I'm feeling and what's happened, going out for a 10-minute walk is guaranteed to reduce the intensity of my emotions even slightly. And it's something that you can pop out and do pretty much anytime, anywhere you are, like unless you're in the middle of a work shift or something. So it's often a more appropriate way of getting an endorphin boost and calming yourself down than doing a full workout is. And also, a walk is always a great mindfulness opportunity. It is an opportunity to get time and space away from my thoughts and whatever it is I'm working on, and to really get in touch with what I am thinking and feeling. And when I step away from stimulation and stress and work and consciously observe my thoughts and feelings, I am so much better equipped to respond to them instead of simply just react to them. I also spoke about this before in my 4th episode on self-care activities, but something else that I learned from Michael Smoke, again, is that walking mimics EMDR therapy, which is a type of therapy that uses rapid back and forth eye movement to reduce stress and anxiety and reprocess traumatic memories. After I released that episode, I did a little bit more reading around the topic out of curiosity, and I actually found out that it's not just that walking mimics EMDR therapy. Walking was actually the basis on which EMDR therapy was created. So the psychologist who founded EMDR therapy, Dr. Francine Shapiro, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce her name. Again, I've read it so many times on paper. I did look up how to pronounce it before I started the episode. Anyway, she popped off on a walk while suffering from upsetting and distressing thoughts. And she noticed that when she entered optic flow, which is the eye movement that keeps your brain updated on where you are in space, the intensity of the negative thoughts and feelings that she was having were significantly reduced. And this is because optic flow reduces activity in the amygdala, which is one of the parts of our brain that is responsible for creating fear and anxiety responses. So this explains why walking and entering optic flow have such amazing de-stressing benefits. So building a walking habit is going to help you become immediately more chilled out. It's going to boost your mood. You're going to get the serotonin benefits of sunlight in your eyes. And it's a perfect opportunity to spend time away from the things that are perhaps contributing to your poor mental health and stress, like excessive phone use or any situations which might be stressing you out, upsetting you, making you angry. The list goes on. Any kind of walking on top of what you're already doing is going to be super beneficial. But if you want a time recommendation for when to implement this new habit, one of the best times to do it is first thing in the morning, or as early in the morning as you can, because getting sunlight in your eyes as early on in the day as possible does this thing where it resets your circadian rhythm, which basically means an internal timer in your body is set and it starts counting down until your winding down phase, which means that come bedtime, you are going to start feeling calmer and sleepier, which is going to help you sleep. So the earlier you get out and get sunlight in your eyes and reset that circadian rhythm, the more calm and sleepy you are going to feel in time for bedtime, which is going to help you get to sleep and improve the quality of your sleep. I also just think that committing to any new healthy habits in the morning, wherever you can, is going to be the best way to go for so many reasons. But A, because nobody else can really interrupt that time if you're doing it before the rest of your day starts. B, because you've not used up any of your willpower for the day yet. C, you're not going to run out of time to do it. And D, it will put you in a really positive mood, which is going to set a really great tone for the rest of your day. Number 3 is a non-physical habit, and it is journaling. Journaling for me is such a fun and enjoyable tool that has a massively positive impact on my mental well-being and my happiness. I used to frequently feel like my thoughts were this tangled ball of wool in my head, and that my mind was always racing at 100 miles per hour, and I could never actually untangle the wool enough to straighten it out and read what was written on it. And journaling to me feels like it allows me to do that when I am putting pen to paper and observing my thoughts at the speed at which I can write at. It feels like somebody slowly untangling and straightening out those pieces of wool so that I can actually read what's going on. Basically, it gives me the time to observe and reflect on those thoughts, as opposed to just experiencing a constant barrage of overlapping thoughts and fleeting ideas. There is overlap with walking, again, in the sense that for me, journaling always reduces, at least somewhat, the intensity of my negative emotions. My journaling sessions have become a place where I have time set aside to take control of my life and problem solve, where I give my thoughts and feelings attention and validation, where I reparent myself, where I rewire my limiting beliefs. It does feel quite reminiscent of therapy, and I'm not saying that because I believe that it's an alternative to seeing a professional, because to me it's not, and they're two very different experiences. But I do understand why people say that journaling is like free therapy, because it is actively setting aside time to have someone sit with you and your experiences and to help you through them. It just so happens that that person sitting with you and helping you through is you, as opposed to somebody else. I think the process of taking 10 minutes to actually sit with your own thoughts and having to write them out at a slow pace and experience that slow observation can be so helpful for our clarity and our understanding of our own thoughts. And I also believe that understanding and awareness are the first steps to any positive life change, because we can't fix or change a problem that we don't actually know exists. But of course, writing out our thoughts doesn't always have to just be about fixing our problems. And a lot of the time for me, journaling is a problem-solving process, but there are so many other benefits to it as well, and there are so many other ways in which you can do it. I started my first ever journaling practice around about the time when I first discovered the self-improvement side of social media and started changing my life for the better. And I do think it was one of the first habits I ever actually implemented. And I got myself a 5-minute journal, which is a specific branded journal that is a very popular and widely used health and wellness influencer accessory, but I think for good reason. It is such an easy and accessible entry point to mindfulness practices. Every page has 3 morning prompts and 2 nighttime prompts, and the space for you to fill out your answers. And the morning time prompts are, what am I grateful for? What would make today great? And affirmation for the day, or affirmation, or something along those lines. And then the nighttime prompts are highlights of the day and what did I learn today? So this 10-minute daily practice ticks so many mental wellness boxes for me. I still do it. I still have the journal. I've been through like 3 or 4 of them, I think. I quite like having the aesthetic little accessory, but if this is something you're interested in, you don't have to buy the book. You could just do it in a blank notepad. But the reason I still do it is because it is such a multi-beneficial practice. I'm reinforcing my bias towards positivity and gratitude with the what am I grateful for and highlights of the day questions. I'm practicing taking control of my own day and my own life with the what would make today great question. And I'm growing and progressing and getting 1% better every single day with the what did I learn today prompt. And there are so many other guided journals that you can try. Other ones that I know of well are Tam Kaur has one. She's a self-love and self-confidence content creator who I adore. I love her content. She's released one called the Obsessed with Growth Journal, and you can buy that directly from her website. And of course, there's this one, the 5-minute journal. Both of them are, I think the 5-minute journal is about 26 quid on Amazon. I think the Obsessed with Growth one is the same actually on Tamcor's website. So if you're not in a position to be spending that much money, or you'd rather not on a journal, you can just buy a blank notepad and use the prompts, or you can get free prompts from loads of other places on the internet. I've used ones from TikTok before that have been great. Again, Instagram, Pinterest I think is also quite good for finding journaling prompts and inspiration. Or you can just free write. I do that for 10 minutes as well, each morning and every night. So my journaling practice is I will do the morning segment of the 5-minute journal, then do my 10-minute brain dump, and then in the evening I do the evening segment, 10-minute brain dump. So the combination of these two practices every day means that I am working on my positive mindset on the daily and consistently maintaining it, but I'm also giving myself the opportunity to sit with and observe and reflect and work on anything that I might be experiencing without the need for it to be all positive. And the last healthy habit that I want to chat about today is reading. I really hope that I am not alone in having had my parents harp on at me throughout my teenage years and into my uni years about getting back into reading because I loved it as a child, and you used to be so happy when you read, which at the time when I was in the deep depths of depression felt like really patronizing advice. But I think, unfortunately, again, upon reflection, they were probably right about it in a sense. I was an absolute book nut as a kid. I loved to read. I was obsessed with books, could get myself lost in them so easily. And then I think as I got older, I did it less and less, and I found it less enjoyable because other activities were just more stimulating and addictive, like social media scrolling, which I talk about all the sodding time, reality TV, gaming was a big one for me. And I think just like so many other people, my dopamine system was so fucked, and I was so addicted to these dopamine spikes, which reading doesn't give you, even though it's a great form of entertainment. It can't offer that. What it can offer is slow release dopamine, which you can learn to start enjoying again over time with brain training, essentially, which I spoke about in more detail in the last episode, the Hack Your Happy Hormones one, but that you can also read about in the books, the Dose Effect, which is what last episode was all about if you didn't listen to it, and Dopamine Nation. But that ties us over really nicely into why this is one of my favourite healthy habits to talk about, and it's because I think one of the best things we can do for our mental health, I feel like I say that a lot, there are so many great things that we can do for our mental health, an amazing thing that you can do for your mental health is starting to crowd out highly stimulating and highly dopaminergic and addictive activities with enjoyable activities that cause a slow release in dopamine. And I think reading is one of those incredible activities that offers you that slow release while still being really entertaining and enjoyable if you start learning to enjoy it again, or for the first time if you were never a big reader. Actually, that is a benefit that goes for all 4 of these activities. You don't have to change your life by going cold turkey on everything that is perhaps contributing to your poor mental health, because if you did, you would be left twiddling your thumbs. But what you can do is start implementing these quote-unquote healthier activities bit by bit, and gradually start crowding out those activities until you're only engaging in them at an amount that is healthy and conducive to your happiness. To put it more articulately, you can start reducing your time spent on or crowding out those highly stimulating activities with healthier habits, like reading. So obviously both fiction and non-fiction books are going to have these incredible slow dopamine release benefits, and they're both a great form of entertainment, or they can be if you find something that you're really interested in, and they're both a great enjoyable screen-free activity. But there are unique benefits to both, I think. Fiction books specifically, I think, can really increase our empathy and open us up to new perspectives and other people's life experiences, and can be a lot of the time more enjoyable and more entertaining. But there are also a bunch of exclusive benefits to non-fiction reading. Reading and learning about yourself and the world around you, specifically I think through self-improvement books, teaches you a whole host of new skills. You can learn how to improve yourself and your relationships, and how to become happier and more successful and more emotionally intelligent. Basically any skill you could want to improve, or any area of your life that you could want to improve, there will be a book on it. And every new skill that you learn adds to your internal toolkit that helps you to navigate life. Choosing a book to read on a subject that you're interested in is also a great way to stay in alignment with and stay focused on living your dream life. It keeps your brain active, it heightens your curiosity and critical thinking skills. I also just really strongly believe that knowledge is power, and knowledge on yourself and how your brain and body work and how to optimize your own life essentially is going to give you so much more control over your own direction and your own happiness. Two of my recent-ish self-improvement reads, as in I've read both of them this year, have been The Dose Effect by TJ Power and Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before by Dr. Julie Smith. And they have both been two of my favourite self-improvement books that I've read of all time, and they're also incidentally both probably top of my list of books that I would recommend to people who are new to non-fiction reading or new to self-improvement as a genre. The Dose Effect is all about how to hack your happy hormones and live a healthy lifestyle in order to aid your mental health. And Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before is basically a book on tools and knowledge that are shared in therapy, but that can be used to understand the mind and body better in order to better cope with our emotions and life generally. Also, I hadn't planned to talk about this, but it just popped into my head. Shelby Sacco, who I talk about all the time, it feels, her podcast is always linked to my episode descriptions in the little podcast recommendations bit at the end. She is one of the first content creators I found whose content really resonated with me and whose advice really started to turn my life around. I love her so much. I love everything she stands for. She's hilarious. I can never recommend her content or her podcast enough. But one of the things that I remember she says in one of her first two episodes, which are always the two that I recommend to people, she talks about how when she was essentially depressed, she always says she never got a diagnosis, but she thinks from her experience she would have been diagnosed depressed if she'd gone to a doctor with what she was struggling with. And she didn't know what to do. She wanted to turn her life around, and one of the first things she thought was, okay, well, if I become smart, I'll better know what to do, and smart people write books. So I'm going to read a book that a smart person has written, and that is going to help me change my life, which is like flawless logic. It sounds ridiculous when you say it, but it obviously worked for her. And she read, what's it called? I think it's The Power of Habit. I've read it. It's not Atomic Habits. I think it is called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And it is a book all about how habits impact us and our lives. And that is what kickstarted her Sad to Savage journey. And she has now built a whole business and platform essentially around behavioral change and habit change. But I love the way that she talks about it, and I love the fact that whenever she talks about it, she always says somebody else out there has done all the hard work for you. They have done hours and months and years worth of research on a topic, and they have compiled it all and put it into a book that you can buy or get from a library and read to get all the knowledge that they think is most important on that subject. And basically, why would anybody not want to make use of that incredible resource? I just wanted to throw the story in there as a reminder to anybody that if there's even an inkling of like a flame or spark in you that is interested in a particular topic, somebody else has already done all the hard work for you and almost definitely written a book on it. So why not go and find it and make use of that resource and get all the other benefits of reading at the same time? And you never know, it might completely change your life, and you might become a content creator and build your own business around it like Shelby Sacco has. I actually want to give you a cheeky bit of homework today because I love some at the end of a podcast episode sometimes. And also just because I personally hate having loads of choice. Like, I hate having limitless options. If somebody says to me in a podcast, there are limitless options for what form of exercise you do, I want to scream and say, no, just tell me one. Like, I don't care, whatever it is, I will try it. So in case there's anybody like me who is listening, who is like, just give me a target, give me something to do and give me a target. What can I say? I'm a woman of the people and I'm here to provide. If you want to, try starting one of these healthy habits and sticking to it for the next week. So the first one isn't actually going to require you to do something every day, but it is to do a 20-minute workout twice in the following week. If you don't know what form of exercise you want to do, go on TikTok and search how to exercise for 20 minutes, which is what I used to do when I'd fallen off a wagon and wanted to get back into the habit. And I would choose one of like the first 5 that came up so that I wasn't scrolling for ages and stick to that and do it twice a week for a couple of weeks. That's your first option. The second one is journaling for 5 minutes every morning for a week, either with the 5-minute journal morning prompts that I gave you, or just doing a brain dump, whichever one resonates with you and makes you feel best. Experiment with both if you want. Number 3 is reading for 5 minutes a day. Choose your own book or choose either of the 2 that I recommended. Or actually, Atomic Habits is another really great read if you're interested in learning how to better support yourself in building these new habits or just in behavioural change in general. And the last one is taking a daily 10-minute morning walk. Bonus points if you can do that without headphones, so no music, no podcasts, but if that's what you need to get you out and doing it, and if that's what will help you enjoy it more, then by all means go ahead. Like always, you can adjust them any which way to suit you, but those are the goals that I started with when I started tracking each of these healthy habits, and those are the ones that I go back to if I'm ever struggling or I've fallen off the wagon and I just need to ease myself back into them. And if you do want any further help on how to successfully implement positive behavioural change, I could not recommend Shelby Sacco's podcast enough, but specifically her first 2 ever episodes, because those are the ones where she gives the most information and all the basics on how to actually start building healthy habits and the step-by-step process that she goes to. And those are the 2 episodes with all the diagrams linked and the mechanics of how everything works. I'm going to wrap up today just by quickly going back to what I think is the most important thing that I've said. Buying and using a fun, pretty journal or going for a walk around the block every day before you go to work, neither of those things or any of the other things I've mentioned are going to solve directly your very big, real and scary life problems. They can't do that all on their own, no matter how much evidence there is of the positive impacts of them. The point of this episode was not for me to tell you that these things and anything I've mentioned alone can fix everything in your life. The point of this episode was for me to tell you that these things can better equip you to deal with the very big and real and scary life challenges that you have. And that is what can change everything. And that brings us to the end today. Thank you so much if you've listened, and especially if you've gotten to this point and listened the whole way through. I am always open to feedback on this because ultimately I want it to be of value to the people listening. So if anybody ever has any feedback, please send it my way. You can message me on TikTok or Instagram or leave a comment on Spotify or YouTube, whatever you're listening to this on, or Apple, I believe. And I know people don't always like to be asked, but if you could find it within your heart to consider leaving a like or a star rating or a comment or a review or a follow, any of those types of engagement can really, really help me out because they will increase the visibility of the podcast and push it out to more people, which means it's more likely to find the people who are going to benefit from it, which is my ultimate goal. So if you learned anything today, or if you enjoyed it or benefited from it in any way, that could be a great way of showing your thanks. But yeah, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day and an amazing week, or an amazing 2 weeks, because that will, fingers crossed, hopefully be when I speak to you again. But until then, keep yourself well, be kind to yourself, do your homework, let me know how it goes if you do it, and I can't wait to speak to you soon. Lots of love, and bye for now.